Three, two, one. All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? I'm back. This time with episode 1 of the Skinny Boy Says podcast. So today, like I said, is episode 1. I just want to let you guys know I am going to still be doing the Thrive AmTap with Derek, but this is kind of a spur of the moment thing that I just decided to do. I wanted to create a way for me to kind of get my thoughts out there about my personal life, my view on a lot of things outside of just fitness, entertainment, my life, things that I see and things that I feel. Kind of what I want to do here is give a quick background on me. For those that do know me, you can maybe skip this part, or if you want to hear it again. If you don't, listen in, kind of just, like I said, a quick background. And then I'm going to get into why I'm doing this podcast, and then get into the meat and potatoes of it, and then go from there. So quick background on me. My name is Brandon Gallagher. I'm 24. I live in New York, and I co-own a gym called Thrive Fitness and Wellness. So a huge reason why I'm doing this podcast is, like I said, to share my personal thoughts, not just fitness. A lot of what I do is fitness. Obviously, I'm a fitness instructor. I own a gym. I try to make sure that a lot of what I do is also in mental health, making sure that people are building awareness in not just movement, but everyday life. So kind of going into that, the reason I'm doing this is I've had some cool things happen over the past 3 months, good and bad, which I'll get into. And with that, I've, taken a lot of opportunity to grow. I've taken a lot of opportunity to kind of self-reflect. And I think I'm in a unique position being a business owner at the age of 24. There's not a lot of us out there. And, with that process comes a lot of learning, a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, and going through, I'm not saying what I've gone through the past 3 months is the worst thing on earth. And I'm not trying to create a sob story here, but I just want to, get that information out there. So those of you who may be going through a struggle, or, may be going through something that is bugging you or eating away at you, this is how I dealt with my problem, and this is how I'm going to continue to deal with my problems. And then, this is my learning process, and I want to invite you guys in on the learning process as I continue to grow, and I want you guys to be along for the ride. And with that, is being as vulnerable as possible, opening up, letting people know what's going on, how it's going on, what I'm doing about it, and then taking the processes that I learn, because I've made mistakes along the way, and I've made a lot of mistakes in the past 3 months that could have been handled a little bit better, and I probably would have gotten through this a little bit easier. But it was my first time going through it, and like I said, I'll get into that in a second. So I kind of wanted to start with the social media break that I had. I took the month of November off from all social media. I was still looking at it, but I didn't post. I didn't really engage a lot with the stuff that was on there. I kind of just, out of habit checked, which I probably shouldn't have. And one of the things I wish I did was, completely cut it out for the month. Maybe next year I'll do that, take that next step. Now, with my social media break, I wanted to, see how I would react to not being on social media. Meaning not posting, like I said, not engaging, not really, consuming much content, just kind of browsing through, seeing if there was anything, and then just hopping off. Now, there was a main reason too that I kind of needed, which I'll get to, but I got the idea from Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a huge part of what I do, and I watch a lot of his stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but if you haven't, you need to go check him out. He is a huge part of my mental shift in the past few years and giving me the confidence to even try to attempt to start a business. And, it's been awesome to see his growth, and I want to do the same thing. So, this is another reason why I'm starting this. So, another reason I needed a social media break was I was pretty severely burned out. I don't know if it was burned out specifically from the social media stuff, but it was taking up a huge part of my day. And it was taking up a lot of effort from me, mental capacity. I was thinking about it a lot, and it was, leaking into my personal life. And I learned that the hard way. And, it was something that needed to kind of be handled, and it was handled, And with that month, I got the opportunity to kind of step away, rethink and retool about everything. And, I'll kind of get into why the main reason I needed a social media break was. And again, this is not a sob story, but I think it's important that, people know. So about 3 months ago, I went through a breakup, and the importance of it is significant because, it was my first real relationship, and dealing with all the learning of having a relationship and then losing it was something that obviously no one wants to go through, but I think was, important for me. And, there was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad. And I first off want to say sorry to the people at the gym, all the members, if there was ever any time that I seemed kind of out of it or in a fog, because I was learning on the fly how to deal with all of this. And I was, attempting to get through this by being around you guys. And, some days were worse than others. Some days I was all right. Some days it was just kind of like in a fog, like I was saying, and I would just kind of feel not great. And, I don't want it to ever affect the product you guys are getting or the service you guys are getting. So if it ever seemed that way, I'm sorry. But, learning from that was something that I needed to do, and I needed to go through it. So, kind of talking about the good and the bad of the breakup. The bad, I'll start with just to get it over with. You're losing a best friend. You're losing the routine that you had. Losing aspects of the relationship, which, I learned to love. The memories, all that stuff. And like I said, this was my first breakup, so it hit pretty hard. And it made me question a lot of things. And like I said, this isn't a sob story. I know it's a breakup. People go through them all the time. And there's a lot worse problems that people have in life. But, this hit hard for me. This was something that was pretty close to my heart. And like I said, it was something that, was my first time ever going through this. Now, with that bad, there was good. There was a lot of good, and maybe it took me a little bit while to see it. But I think I was in a spot where I was too comfy at the time, and it pushed me out of it completely. So when it happened, it kind of pushed me into a spot where I had to get out of the comfort zone I was in, whether that was, my mentality or my actual actions. I think being in the spot where I was in, there was a lot of complacency, and, it pushed me to a spot where I decided, all right, well, this isn't going to get better if I just sit here. So I need to get out of this. It made me reevaluate my priorities. Now, I knew inside my head what my priorities were at the time, but my actions may have stated otherwise. And, anytime that someone's learning and and I'm not using my age as an excuse, but being at the age that I'm at and with the, little life experiences that I've had to this point, there's some lag time in between. There's some lag time in between learning a priority, cementing it in your head, and then your actions following that. So I think my priorities in my head were a lot different than my actions stated. And, that's obviously not a good thing. But, that lag time, I think, caught up, and my priorities now are in order of, what they should be, and my behaviors kind of mimic that better than they were. Another good thing was it made me dig deep into my emotional state, my mental health. Not that I was going crazy or anything, but it made me want to grow and learn more about myself. It made me want to learn, why am I feeling this way? Why am I reacting this way? It made me, in so many ways, have to grow. And, it made me want to be more of an independent person. So, it made me self-reflect. It made me make new goals. Whether the ones I made right after were the right goals or not, they definitely helped me. Learning to cook was something I was dabbling in anyway, so I kind of went full force into that. Doing my own laundry was something that, whatever, I just never had to do. And, I took the initiative on it, and, that was easy. It was something that I just needed to kind of sit down and learn. But, those were little things that I did right after that kind of, got the ball rolling. And I'm grateful for doing those, because if I didn't, the ball wouldn't have never been rolling, and I wouldn't have gained the momentum that I have. So, it made me want to work on my ability and my skills to become the best person that I could. So, when this opportunity arises again, that, I can put my best foot forward. So, I can do my best to not let it happen again. I started, reading immediately. I looked into a lot of outside sources of, what's the best way to deal with this? How do I make the most out of this? How do I create the, best opportunity for myself here? And, I started reading, and, that's one of the things I'm going to do with this podcast is I read a lot of good books over the past, 3 months, and I really want to dive into them a little bit more and review them and kind of talk about, the key aspects that I really enjoyed about them and share them with you guys. So one of the things I want to do is review a lot of those books, and then, I'll kind of post them on Instagram so you guys can see them if you want to read them. If you ever want to borrow it, just ask. I only have one copy, but, I can maybe start Skinny Boy Library. But, another thing that this made me do, it pushed me to kind of really, like I said, make me want to work on my ability and my skills, not only personally, but obviously on my career. So I started the OPEC certification, which I was, contemplating back and forth for about, I want to say, a year and a half now. It's a year-long certification, and it costs a pretty penny. So the money was the thing that was kind of holding me back at that point. But at this point, I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to figure it out. I'll come up with the money when I, as I go. And I just want to get this certification done, and I just want to start it. So I've been doing that for the last month and a half, and I'm really excited about that and the opportunities that that's going to give me. And, with that comes, a certain sense of responsibility because I'm investing in myself. And a lot of the time, investing in yourself means becoming more independent. And and looking for all of this stuff, looking for how to deal with it, how to make the most out of it, how to kind of increase my state, increase my ability to deal with this again, and then share it with you guys. I realized, how much of my motivations were external in a lot of ways. So, and one thing I learned was that, external driving forces are motivations, and internal ones are inspiration. So we want to be chasing inspiration for most things that we do. We want to be inspired by us, a love for ourselves, an ability to increase our self, I don't want to say self-worth, but to us, making ourselves more confident in our ability and making us happier. So, when I went out looking for, the books to read, when I went out deciding that I wanted to, do this certification, when I looked out and wanted to, took the initiative on doing my own laundry, whether I should have or shouldn't have been, that's a different conversation. But, a lot of this wouldn't have happened if this didn't occur. And now I'm not saying that I wish it happened, because I don't, but, there's the way that when things happen like this, you have to be able to try to find the good. As much as it sucks, you have to find the good in it somehow. And I struggled with that for the past 3 months, trying to find the good in it. And I'm not saying that all of it was, or any of it was bad, or any of it was like all good, but there was aspects of it that needed to happen, and I don't know that they would have changed if it wasn't for it. So, in my head, this led me to a lot of different thoughts and emotions, a lot of different, a lot of different ways of thinking about things. And I questioned a lot of what I was thinking. Why was I thinking it? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I losing motivation? And, I dug into, if you haven't yet, I recommended him to a lot of people, but Tony Robbins, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to him or heard of his name. This dude's unreal. He holds seminars all the time. He's not a motivational speaker, but he's someone who, is a speaker, and he is a life coach, I guess, if you want to call him that. But he has helped me in a ton of ways. His outlook and his kind of perspective on a lot of things, his theories, and his videos on YouTube. You can just find, you just type in Tony Robbins, then kind of maybe the issue you're having, or what it is that you're trying to deal with, and there'll probably be a video for you to watch. And listening to his stuff constantly kind of put me in a spot where I was constantly being able to think about how I was dealing with it, and then making it better and more efficient. I wasn't saying that, it wasn't first video I watched and I was fixed. It takes a couple times when you're dealing with that stuff to kind of, and I'm not saying I'm fixed now either, but I'm in a way better position than I was. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say here, is the goal here is when something like this happens is to just take steps to get into a position. So the next time it comes around, you're not, our goal in life is to learn from the mistakes of ourselves and others, and then not spend so much time on the next time that it happens, because you'll know how to deal with it. You'll know the steps you had to take for it, and you'll know how to make it feel better. Now, those videos were something that helped me a ton, because he was talking to other people. He was talking about his experiences in life. And this guy, had a brain tumor, and his mom beat him when he was younger. And, he was living in a car at one point. He was a janitor. So like listening to all this stuff, and then me sitting in my nice Nissan Rogue, driving to a job that I love in a business that I own, feeling upset, was kind of like, oh man, all right, well, and not, I'm not shaming anybody else's problems, because we all have problems and we all deal with them to a certain degree. And, I probably dealt with this in a way that I didn't know, because I didn't know how much it meant to me. But, looking at it, there was a lot that I learned perspective wise. And if he can get through those problems, then, I can get through my problems. And some days, like I said, are worse than others. And I'm not always 100% happy-go-lucky, but I've been in a way better mental state and state of mind over the past month at least. And I think, kind of leaving the pressure of social media and posting all the time, and, just focusing on what I love doing, which is coaching and instructing and being an actual instructor, and, building my capacity to do that, it helped a lot. And it put me in a state where, I was gaining confidence by the day, because one of the biggest things about, a breakup is you take a confidence hit right from the beginning. It's, there's, like I said, it made me question a lot of things, and it put me in a position where I was like, shit, well, what, like, I started questioning, what did I do? Was it this? Was it that? I was very, very hard on myself. And, that self-reflection, whether it was too much at the beginning, has a correction. And, just like the stock market, just like anything else in life, there's a correction at some point. And we as humans tend to go to the nth degree on most things, whether it's necessary or not. And when we go to the nth degree, there's always a correction. If we go all the way to the bad side of something, there's always a correction when we come back. If, we go all the way to the good, and it's too good, and it's too good, it's too, like, and we don't take it for granted, there's going to be a correction, and we're going to come back. So a lot of that stuff that, there was a correction that needed to happen, and the correction happened. So, these thoughts and emotions that I was having, I was, going to a point where I was being way too hard on myself. And I had to take a step back and say, what does this really mean? And one of the things I learned from Tony Robbins and listening was to ask better questions. So this was a huge one. And like, if you guys can start to implement this as soon as possible, this will be something that helps. And asking better questions to yourself, and you'll get the answers that you're looking for. Now, one of the examples that he gave was, if you're out of shape or overweight, and you ask yourself, why am I such a fat piece of what? If you ask that question, your body's going to go, oh, well, you eat potato chips, you do this, you don't work out, you sleep late, and it's going to go over all the things that are making you that overweight, or making you feel bad, or making you feel, not good about yourself. If you ask the question, what can I do today to help myself get better or get in more shape? Then you'll get the answer that you want. What can I do today to help myself get in better shape? Maybe I eat, a couple less chips than normal. Maybe I go to bed just a little bit earlier, and I wake up and I go on a walk in the morning. Maybe I go for a little bit of a run. Maybe I try walking for 10 minutes and running for 60 seconds, but just asking that question and that mental state change of, what can I do to actually help myself instead of why am I this way is huge. Because once you start implementing that and you start asking the right questions, you'll get the right answers, you'll get the right actions, you'll be able to put actions in place, and that is going to be a huge stepping stone to solving. So one of the big things that I learned from the certification that I'm doing, and it's something that was just recent within the past couple weeks, was this idea of a NEPA framework, which is noticing, explaining, prescribing, and action, and then the 4 seasons of learning. Now, NEPA is something that I've implemented into my life now because I just learned it, but noticing, meaning you're taking awareness of what's going on. You're noticing certain things. The explanation is going to that person or to yourself and asking for the explanation. Why are you noticing this? What is it that's making you notice this? Getting the explanation and then prescribing a plan to put in place and then taking action. And that is a repeatable cycle, because as you take more action, there's going to be new noticing, more explanation, re-prescribing and refining that prescription so it's better and better each time, and then you take action in order to keep going and make it better and better and better. So this whole thing is a learning process. And within that learning process, there are 4 seasons of learning. And within that 4 seasons of learning, there's a process that you need to go to. The first process of the 4 seasons is doing. So you're doing stuff. You're going out of your way to accomplish something. You're doing. After that is refining. So you take that, you do the do, you become a chronic doer like I am. Actually, you don't want to become a chronic doer. You reflect. So after that doing phase, you take a step back and you reflect. What did I do good? What did I do bad? What could I have done better? What could I have done worse? And you take that and then you put that into conceptualization. So you make new ideas. You create new ideas. You create new concepts, new ways of doing things. Once you start into this phase, you go into devising and you devise a new plan. Now, what happens with these 4 phases is there's 4 different plans, or there's 4 different sections. What I realize is I'm a chronic doer in more ways than one. And, what I mean by that is I never move on in the next stage. I find something, I do it, and I just continue to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. I never reflect. I never conceptualize or come up with new ideas. And then I never devise a plan to create it and make it better. So with this framework, you can see, as you do, making plans for yourself to reflect, whether that's 1 week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, reflect on what you're doing. And then you conceptualize new plans, new ideas. You come up with new and better ways to do things. And then you devise a plan to do it again. And you start that process over again. All these frameworks are just massive circles that you just continue to go through as you continue to grow and learn and provide yourself with the ways to kind of get better and better and better. So this was a huge kind of, upgrade for me, and learning this was very important, and it made me realize a lot of things. Now, a lot of the things that, on top of priorities that I needed to fix, more about, like I said, my priorities are in order, but, my actions may have stated otherwise. And, another thing I knew I needed was boundaries, because being a business owner at the age of 24 is hard. And being the type of person I am, if you know me, I am in the business of making people happy. And, I really enjoy helping people, and it's why I do what I do. So when I get the opportunity to help someone or make someone happy or make their day or give them the slightest bit of information that I learned that might help them create a better life, or, a better opportunity for themselves, or a new way of thinking, I'm going to do that, and most of the time to my own detriment. And, I needed to define and create more direct boundaries, which I did. And, that's another conversation for another time, because I have a book that I read that I want to go over and how that kind of helped me create mine. But, it's one of my biggest strengths and my biggest weaknesses, because my biggest strength is that, I want to help, and that I believe I give a lot of value to most people that I come into contact with. And, one of my biggest weaknesses is I go out of my way a lot of times to help people and give them a lot of value, and like to my own detriment. So, I was overworking myself, just kind of saying, oh, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. Becoming a chronic doer, not reflecting, not conceptualizing, not devising a new plan. I was just doing. And to the point where, I was feeling tired. I was feeling burned out. And then when all of this kind of happened at the same time, it kind of put me in a spot where it really kind of punched me in the face. And once it punched me in the face, I never had that happen. So I was kind of like, all right, this isn't fun. I sulked in my emotions for a while. And, like I said, being a business owner at the age of 24, and I'm not using this as an excuse because I chose to do this. I made my bed. I'm laying in it. But, there's pressures, there's stresses, and there's sacrifice that you have to give in that position. I know a lot of my friends now that are taking opportunities to travel. They're taking opportunities to, move out and live in different places, do different things, not so much build careers per se. They're doing jobs that, maybe they wouldn't necessarily do for the rest of their life, but they're just trying to live. And in my eyes, I'm trying to, build something. And with that comes a certain sacrifice. Now, each side comes with a sacrifice. Just because they're out having fun or, going to parties and, traveling doesn't mean that they're not sacrificing anything. They're sacrificing in different ways. My sacrifice comes in a lot of different ways. And, all of this creates a blessing and it creates a curse because, I'm confident in my abilities to build what I want to build. And, I'm confident in my ability to create a life that I want to create. But, with that comes the curse of, important people in your life maybe not realizing that dream and, not fitting in directly, or maybe not, I don't know. There's just like, it comes with a lot of curses along with the blessings. And there's things that happen during that process that make it so worth it at the end, but make it very hard along the way. And I've, before I really got into owning the gym, I was listening to a lot of entrepreneurship stuff and business owner stuff, and they say how lonely it is. They say how, exhausting and tiring it is. And you're coming from a kid who is, 20, 22 coming out of college. It's like, oh yeah, you're just, you just don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. I know what I can do. I know I can do it. And, you get into it and you're like, shit, like this is lonely. This is tiring. This is exhausting. And it's all worth it. Don't get me wrong. It's just, that's part of the territory, and that's part of building something so good and so great that you guys get to enjoy and that I get to see you guys enjoy and then enjoy that. So, that's another reason why I needed a social media break. There was a lot of stuff kind of happening at once and a lot of stuff that I was trying to, figure out and that was starting to change in my life. And, it was a little bit overwhelming. And like I said, this process was something that I was kind of learning on the fly and needed to happen. I'm not in a point where, like I said, I'm fixed or like I'm 100% perfect because, part of me wishes some things were different, but, I am also going to be the one who has to change that. And I'm going to have to make the life that I want to make. So, kind of to give a brief overview of, I needed to reshape my priorities and I needed to reshape my boundaries and I needed to dive a little bit deeper into my own mental health. And I don't think a lot of people take the opportunity to, or if they do, they blow it off because, they were like me where it's like, oh, I'll figure it out later. I'll figure it out after. Let me give. And one of the best things I ever heard from Gary Vee was talking about being selfish before you can be selfless. Because if you're just, draining a well that's empty, nothing's coming out eventually. There's only going to be so much. But if you need to take the time to refill that well, refill yourself, make yourself happy, make yourself relax, de-stress, find things that you like to do outside of there or your main source of income, or maybe you do enjoy your main source of income, like find something outside of that. So, it still becomes your love and it still becomes a thing that you look forward to doing every day. Because if you don't, you're going to put yourself in a position where you know, burnout happens, resentment happens, and things fall apart. And some people get lucky. I don't want to call it lucky. Some people, they they get the opportunities to do things and they can power through it, but not everybody can power through things. It's not about powering through either. It's about diving into certain aspects and being able to control them and knowing your priorities. This is something that you should not, looking back at it, my priorities should have never been a second guess to the people in my life. And, the boundaries that I wasn't setting was something that should have been there. But again, I had to go through this process to learn that. And if I didn't, who knows? I wouldn't be doing any of this and you probably wouldn't be hearing this. So, along with my mental health, there was a lot of things that I wanted to do and fix. There was my priorities, my boundaries, my mental health, my career. I wanted to make sure that I was setting myself up the best way that I could. And, I needed to do this by seeking help. I didn't want to do it on my own because I didn't have any experience in it. So, what am I going to tell myself, So I seeked help. I stepped outside of my comfort zone and I started asking, whether it was talking to Derek or my family or my therapist, which I highly recommend. If you haven't, try. I can recommend you to who I go to. But that was probably one of the biggest things that I did that helped this process along because, as I said, I was being hard on myself and, coming from a position where I think I'm more normal than I am, I'm more normal and relatable to the average person. Everyone goes through this stuff. And one of the things that Tony Robbins talks about that also helped me was that, the brain has thoughts that are the brain's thoughts, not your thoughts. Everyone has a problem, and you ask a problem. If you ask someone if they have a problem, you're going to get that problem from somebody in some way. These are just thoughts of the brain. They're not your thoughts, and you're not the only person going through it, and you're not the only person to ever go through it, and you won't be the last person to go through it. So, thinking of it in that way and being like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Getting professional help, talking to people that are close to you that will, put you in the right direction and kind of keep you moving forward when, it's really hard to keep pushing. And sometimes you just want to give up. You just want to be like, oh, well, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know how I'm going to get past this hump. This is something that meant a lot to me and it's gone. And what am I going to do? So, me having the ability to turn to people like Derek or my family and then my therapist was something that, really helped me. It kind of made me see things clearly. It put me in a position where I could, and the other thing that was huge that I never, valued was saying things, just saying something, because keeping it in your head sounds so much different than it coming out of your mouth. And, one of the things, again, to keep bringing these guys up, but Gary Vee talks about is sometimes you just have to say it and get the poison out of your body. Just saying it is oh, man, that feels so much better. And having that person to just go sit down and talk with, get that poison out of your body, it just kind of makes you see things a little bit differently after you say it. It makes you hear things and you hear yourself say it. And that's the main thing. And once you hear yourself say it, it changes the perspective in your head. I got goosebumps talking about this right now just because I know what it feels like to go through it. And, I wanted to take all of this head on and I wanted to learn from it. And, the biggest thing that, before I would just have a problem, I would kind of be a quote unquote man about it. I'd push it to the side. I wouldn't talk to anybody about it. I wouldn't say anything about it. And I would just let it sit there and simmer and, cook a nice beef stew. And then, eventually the lid falls off and it spills everywhere. And, that's not what you want. You want to be able to, take this stuff day by day, little problems, little things, don't let them build up. You want to kill the beast before it becomes Godzilla. And, doing this consistently and effectively is going to put you on the best road to success. And that's one of the things that I learned from this the most was that, like I said before, I would just push problems away. I would never deal with them. I would just kind of put it to the side and then, I would just, like I said, be a man about it. I was a little bit emotional about some things and over emotional. And some days I would just kind of be upset and I wouldn't know why. And it was probably just from problems in the past I never pushed down. And then when something comes up, it just gives you that little reminder, and then you just kind of lose it. But being able to understand what you're feeling and understand how to deal with it is so, so, so important. And, like I said, I'm not 100% there, and I'm still in this process. I'm very much in this process. But, taking the steps that I've taken so far, I think is really important to share to you guys, because I'm sure there's someone out there who's kind of at a point where they're just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to turn to. And, maybe your problem's a lot worse than mine. Maybe it isn't. I'm not, like I said, I'm not judging anyone's problems, but, take steps, be active, look for help, go read a book, go find books, go watch videos like Tony Robbins videos, Gary Vee videos, find something you like to do, go create an opportunity for yourself to learn from this. And, you should not be ashamed of feeling emotions. You should be ashamed if you feel emotions and you don't learn from them. If you go through the opportunity of going through one of these things, or like a life event like this, and, you don't take the time to learn from it, you're doing yourself a disservice. One, because, when you learn from something like this, you have the opportunity to share. And that's the main reason, I'm doing this right now, is because I want to share my thoughts and my views on what I went through and how I took step-by-step process. And then if you don't, you hinder your ability to deal with it in the future. And then if you don't as well, you hinder your ability to deal with it in general. Because if you don't deal with it now, and you just push it off, there's going to be a point in your life where you're going to have to deal with that eventually. And if you don't deal with it eventually, it's going to, you push it away for a little bit, but it always comes back up. And, one of the things I've learned, and I've been told continuously by the people I've talked to, is that, like, it's good to go through this stuff at a young age, because, there's a lot of life left to be lived. There's a lot of opportunity for me to fix a lot of things and, provide myself with the life that I do want to live, and kind of put myself in a position where happiness is the thing I'm chasing, or joy is the thing I'm chasing. And, if you don't deal with this now and you start having these problems at 50, 60, it's a lot harder to deal with. It's a lot harder to deal with. You have priorities, you have families, kids, a house, a job. You can't just kind of give all that up to kind of face your problems. And, if you don't learn how to deal with it in an efficient manner, it's not going to be easy to deal with. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's not going to be easy. So, what I want to try to do with this podcast is give you guys the opportunity to learn from my mistakes. Because one of the things that I've done in my life, or try to at least, is learn from other people's mistakes. If there's people who are way more successful than me, who've made way more mistakes than me, and they're very, very successful. And if you can find out what those mistakes are, and you can avoid them and internalize them and know, all right, this person did this, and it doesn't have to be the exact same response. We're all going to respond differently to different things. And that's a big reason to know your priorities, and know what you want in life, because my priorities now are a lot different than they were 2 years ago. And they're a lot different than they were 6 months ago. And, I think that having the opportunity to be able to dissect your own priorities and know what you really want is huge. And if you have the opportunity to, you need to take it, as hard as it is, as emotionally hard as it is, as physically taxing as it is. You need to kind of get help, go find someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, or you go see a therapist. Psychologytoday.com, you can find all of them with insurance, and they'll tell you the price and what insurances they take. That was something that, was huge. And, as I started talking to more and more people and getting their perspective on certain things, it's like, all right, I'm not the only one dealing with this. I'm not going to be the last person to deal with this. And, I shouldn't be ashamed of what I'm feeling. I just need to learn from it. I just need to take the opportunity to see what I'm feeling, ask, why am I feeling it? How am I feeling it? And what can I do to better myself from this situation? And once I do that, it's just, you take that and you take that into the next problem. So I'm taking all this opportunity, all this learning, all these things that I've done in the past 3 months, and I'm pushing them towards myself. So the next time I'm in a situation like this, I'm gonna be a lot different of a person, a lot different of perspective, a lot different on, my emotional control, a lot different on loving myself, a lot different on my priorities, my boundaries, a lot of this stuff. And this is, this is the steps that people need to take in order to build the lives that they want. Because a lot of people aren't happy because, they don't know their priorities. They don't have any boundaries. They don't worry about their mental health. Figuring out your priorities is the number one thing, because if you don't figure out your priorities, you don't know what you're chasing. If you are someone who needs love and relationships and you're, not chasing it, or you're not putting yourself in a position to obtain that, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to not be joyful. You're not going to know, you're not going to love, and you're not going to be able to express that. If you're someone who loves business and that's your priority right now, and you're putting yourself in a position where you're spending money, or you're not taking the actions to build your business, or you're kind of being lazy in certain aspects, or you're not putting yourself in the right mindset to build a business, you're not going to build the business, and you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to be unhappy and not joyful. And the other thing is with the boundaries, which is something that as I've dove into more and more was crucial, is that people need to respect your boundaries, and you need to put boundaries for your own mental health. You need to be able to develop a certain level of, this is as far as I'm going to go, and I need something back, and not in the terms of like, give me, but you can only give so much before it becomes unhealthy, and you can only give so much of yourself before you become burned out. And once you start getting burned out, resentment builds up. You start hating the other person because you start feeling like they put you in that position when they didn't. You just didn't have clear and set boundaries, and you didn't have the opportunity to tell them whether you did or you didn't. A lot of people don't take the time to say, I don't want this from this. I don't want this. I want this. I want this. I would like this. I would like this. And when they don't, they get mad at the other person for not living out their quote unquote priorities, when either they don't know their own priorities, they never stated their priorities, and they don't have any boundaries to back up those priorities. If your main priority is your relationship, and you're working 70 to 80 hours a week, and you don't put a boundary on work, that's not, you're not living out your priorities, like you say. And, that was a big eye opener for me, is because I had my priorities in my head in order, but because of the position I was in, and because of, my drive and my desire to do certain things, I was, not be, my behavior wasn't it wasn't in line with my priorities. And, priorities are the driving force behind behavior, because if you don't, and that's the thing, is if you don't know your priorities, you don't know what's driving your behavior. So I think it's important that you guys figure out your priorities, and once you figure out your priorities, then you can figure out some goals. Then you guys can, dip down by goals and create some specific goals, long-term and short-term. And then from there, you create your boundaries to help you get to those goals. And this is all going to be under the umbrella of mental health. This is all going to be under the opportunity to create mental health and, a positive mental health state. Be happy, be joyful, create, a life that you're happy to be in and you look forward to living every day. So to kind of wrap this all up, that's what this podcast is about. That's the main idea I'm getting from this, that I want to do. And again, I wasn't here to give you the sob story of the breakup, but, I kind of wanted to give you guys a little more information for those of you that see me all the time. And some days I was, like I said, I'm sorry for the people at the gym. It was something that I was dealing with, and I'm still dealing with, but, I'm under a different portion of dealing with it and trying to, learn from it. And, like I said, there's a lot that I've done in the past 3 months, a lot of action I've taken that I think a lot of people would benefit from, even just putting themselves in the mindset to take action. And if anybody ever needs help with that, I'm more than willing to sit down and talk about it. Just give me a heads up, because I do have some boundaries now. But anyways, so like I said, one of the things that I kind of want to take this is to, I want to review the certification that I've done. I want to review the books that I've read. I kind of want to review the process of creating priorities and boundaries and how I've gone about that. And then from here, this is going to kind of be like a like a vlog of sorts, like a log of my life as I go on, as I learn new things, as different experiences happen. I want to put them on here and share it with you guys, and hopefully you guys can learn from them like I learned from others. So if you guys have any questions or anything that, comes out of this, please reach out, please ask. I'm going to post this as soon as I can, and I'm going to put it up on Instagram, and hopefully you guys can give it a listen. And yeah, I'm trying to think if I missed anything. Yeah, I don't think so. And like I said, I want you guys to understand that this is something that I'm doing to help everyone learn. And I know you might be thinking, well, what does a 24-year-old have to offer me that has never been through a lot in his life? But, as much as I haven't, like I said, this is going to be an opportunity for me to grow with you guys. And if you guys have any problems, hopefully you can get something from this, some opportunity, some little nugget of information that is going to help you get better. So yeah, I thank you guys for tuning in if you have listened to this far, and I will see you guys next week. I'm going to try to do this every week, and I'm going to have some Instagram polls and Instagram stuff about what books you guys want me to review that I've read. I have a bunch that I'll take pictures of and kind of put, and I'll have you guys vote, and then what topics you kind of want me to talk about. And yeah, so thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Peace. Skinny boys out.